to the Volleyball Coach Podcast. I'm your host, Alejandro Di Mendoza. I'm a club director, coach, and someone who's passionate about helping players, athletes, and coaches grow in the game we all love. Each week, we break down training, mindset, and performance strategies with some of the best athletes, coaches, experts in volleyball. The goal is simple: to give you tools, stories, and insights you can use right away, whether you're competing as a player, leading as a coach, or supporting as a parent. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Nick Del Bianco. Super excited to have him on. He's a former pro volleyball player. He has experience playing in overseas in Europe, and he's the co-founder of the Arm Swing Academy. Their mission: helping volleyball players move efficiently, eliminate pain, and hit harder through smarter training. Nick and his team are changing how athletes think about training, not only to perform better, but to play pain-free. Thank you, Nick, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Man, I'm super stoked to have you from Canada. I've been able to see a lot of your videos online, and I am not, I'm a little shameless to say that I have definitely stolen some of the things that you do online and apply them with the athletes I work with.
That's amazing. It's not stealing. It's we're all collaborating and sharing.
No, absolutely. Like if anyone catches him online, he has so many good, not only drills, but just great insight on the proper arm swing mechanics, in my opinion, or not the proper, but just something a little bit more efficient.
Yeah, definitely. We lean on efficiency as what we're aiming for, and there's many ways to hit the ball, but we see a few patterns as pretty important to be efficient so we can hit harder with less pain.
Yeah. It's so like what got you started or inspired to start the Arm Swing Academy?
Yeah, good question. So I played professional volleyball back in 2015 to 2018. And my goal playing professionally was to figure out what I wanted to do after. I had no idea after university what I wanted to do. So I thought, I can go play professional, have some experience, see what that turns into. And then as soon as I know what I want to do after, I'll take that next step. And so before my last season, I was going to go play in Switzerland, and my strength coach, and also he was my beach volleyball coach for a little bit, he approached me and he said, would you like to start this company with me? And under the scope of, I was one of his original or first athletes that kind of got to those next levels and was able to play at a good level and be relatively healthy throughout my whole career. And he had kind of the opposite experience where he was injured and had to stop his career because of that. So he was very passionate about not letting other people do that. And then as soon as he approached me with that, I was like, yeah, like I want more athletes to experience what I got to experience, to be able to not be held back by injury, not be held back by pain, and to be able to reach the heights that they're capable of when they're able to be on the court. So that's kind of where it all sparked back in like 2018, 2017. And then we started the company and started getting to work with particularly volleyball players, a lot of either teams, but a lot of athletes that were kind of dealing with like the common shoulder, low back, knee pain, and trying to help them originally mostly off the court, in a weight room setting, try to help them move better, move more efficiently, have more capacity so that they could play relatively pain-free, or at least recover from injuries or from aches and pains a lot quicker.
Yeah. So you're pretty fortunate. You said you didn't really experience a lot of like pain or in massive injuries while you were an athlete.
Yeah. So yeah, I had the other co-founder, Misha Harris. He was my trainer when I like 15 years old until I was done at like 25, 26. And he was ahead of his time in many ways, and he prioritized just movement quality as a foundation of strength and conditioning. So I was doing things differently than my teammates before practice, after practice, in the weight room. And yeah, things would come up. I would sometimes get some knee pain or some shoulder pain or some low back pain when volume was really high and I wasn't prepared for it. But what I continued to learn is when I got back to just moving well and increasing my capacity in certain positions, I'd be able to get out of those pretty quickly. And like, yeah, I'd have like a week or 2 weeks away from sport every maybe couple of years, every few years, but that's pretty minimal in the grand scheme of things in my mind. So yeah, I was pretty fortunate in many ways, but also Yeah, just working with Misha in my career really allowed me to be relatively healthy.
Yeah, I think that just shows the importance of having a mentor or someone who has experience guide you as an
Hmm.
athlete, right? Instead of just like sometimes you're just going through the dark and you don't know what to do, or you read your stuff online and you try to apply it to yourself. But when you have someone who's experienced and knows what they're doing, it could really move things along, and it can really help you just stay in a really great level.
Definitely. Yeah, I love the self-exploration, like look up things, try to figure things out for yourself, but also have a mentor, have someone in your life that you trust that has some knowledge and expertise in these areas, and then combine all that together and find the right recipe for you.
No, absolutely. What were some of the biggest mindset shifts you had during your career, especially from like going from playing to being a coach?
Hmm. Yeah, it's a good one. Biggest mindset shift, or a few of them. I I would say like even like early coaching until now, early I was probably mid 20s when I started my coaching, and I had the impression that I could fix a lot of things, and uh, I was confident in that, and I thought this is the best way, the only way, as most coaches do early on in their career, and yeah, I could do a lot. It was good, but there was a lot of cases where I wasn't experienced enough. I didn't have enough knowledge, um, and I wasn't able to help athletes in the way that I wish I could have helped them. And looking back, like that's been a big shift and a big growth and development in my career. Is just yeah, relying on mentors, having mentors. I did so much continued education, kind of in like the movement space, the recovery space, the anything kind of in that area, and just try to learn as much as I could so that I could help athletes better. Um, and then also just getting to the point with my confidence where like, yeah, I might not be able to help you, and that's okay. But let's find you the person that can. Not everyone is ready to be helped, and that's okay. Or not everyone is ready to be helped by certain people, and so being able to help them find the right, like I said before, like the right recipe or the right method or the right person is a big part of it. So then they can take that next step.
Yeah, I think that's huge what you brought up at like when you first start coaching, and you're absolutely right. Like in my own experience, you think you can help everyone, or you have this fixed mindset of your training and how you want to approach it, and like this is it. This is the only way. And I've been fortunate enough to be mentored by a lot of great coaches, and all the really top coaches I know, they're always learning. And
Mm-hmm.
what they did last year, it doesn't mean that they're going to do it this year, because they're evolving. And I think that's a huge green flag that coaches should be looking for, is that are you pushing yourself to learn new things? Are you willing to experiment? Sometimes, certain things have been working so well for you for so long, right? But are you willing to step outside of that, push yourself as a coach, and to try to implement some of the new things that are coming out? Because especially in the movement space, there's so much research coming out, whether it's the differential learning, which I've been trying to dive into a little bit more, and how it can be applied and help athletes just be the best they can, right? But I think that's such a great sign that you're continuing to learn, trying to apply some stuff, and I think that's a really good sign of a really good coach. Is you're evolving, right? You're not staying stagnant.
Yeah, I think important for coaches to identify that, but also like super important for athletes. Like if you're putting your trust in someone that like as we all do as athletes, it's a weird relationship that we have with coaches sometimes, and we put a ton of trust into them, and like yeah, great, but then let's hope that those coaches are also the ones who are trying to learn, trying to develop, experimenting, playing around with things. Um, yeah, I see a lot of athletes kind of get stuck in that coach-athlete relationship, and they are trying to be coachable, which is a whole other thing. But the let's just say like the methods and everything else, like they're the coaches aren't advancing, and they're not trying to do different things. They're not trying to advance. They're trying to grow. Let's just say. So I think it's a cool thing that athletes can start to kind of figure out for themselves too, and then like yeah, still respect your coach and everything else, but like maybe you find other options too.
Yeah, and that's I think now with the internet, I think that's so much easier now. It's so
Mm.
much easier now for athletes to look outside and not only from what their coach is teaching them, but be able to, take a little bit of ownership in their own development.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing a lot more athletes in this generation who are actively looking for other things and who want to improve on their own. And yeah, and they're willing to do it. They're willing to put in the work, and they're willing to go look out for that. And I think that's really really big. Especially for I think older coaches who had a ton of success earlier on. It's just really easy to just keep on doing it, right? You're winning games, you're developing national team players or collegiate players. Like, it's really hard to like, well, I found something. I don't want to change. I don't want to do anything different.
Hmm.
So you played across Europe. So how did your international experience influence how you view training and movement?
Hmm. Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I realized overseas, a few things. So for training for my own career and my own self was like, okay, I'm at a level where like I'm physical enough, I jump high enough, I hit hard enough. But if I'm injured or if I'm not performing well because my shoulder hurts or something, that directly affects my next contract, my ability to make money. And that was a interesting realization where like I didn't always do exactly what the team strength coach might have programmed for me to do because I started noticing, oh, like that actually before a game doesn't make me perform really well. Oh, and this does. So I'm going to keep doing this, or I'm going to add this in, or adjust it slightly. And starting to manipulate and play around a little bit with that stuff was important for me in my career. And then from kind of this, like, even like our arm swing company or a movement side of things, like I didn't play on the highest level teams over in Europe. I played on some good teams and some good leagues, but nothing at the absolute highest. But we did so little like performance testing,
Mm.
and I thought that was really interesting and something that I see in North America. We're always like, how high do you touch? What's your block touch? What's your spike touch? What's your vertic? Like five different things just to measure how high we jump. And I was like, that was never really a thing over there. And I saw a lot of athletes that jumped lower than I did, didn't touch as high as I probably did, but were playing really well and were better than me and were like more skilled and were like your performance testing is how you're playing on the in your matches. That's kind of what matters the most is how good are you getting at volleyball. So that was a interesting thing where I obviously prioritized the weight room a lot
Yeah.
growing up. And I like that's awesome. That's not to say that that's not important, but it was how is a weight room impacting how you're playing, and that being the thing versus how is a weight room impacting how high you're jumping or your spike touch or your squat PR or whatever it is all about getting better at the sport.
No, definitely. Yeah, I find that interesting that there's not a lot of that tracking of those metrics. Yeah, you're right. In the United States, it's a pretty big deal. Like even in the club level, where the big thing is like, oh, we're trying to get the 10-foot club.
Yeah,
Kids. Our girls like who can touch 10 feet because that's what a lot of college coaches are looking for, right? Trying
totally.
to see a pin hitters or a middle who can touch above 10 feet. That's a really especially at the highest level, you want kids who can play above the net. And
Yeah,
I know a lot of coaches really value that, and that's how they kind of shift through athletes is just by looking at some of these metrics, right?
yeah,
So I
yeah.
find that interesting that it's wasn't as big. What were they tracking stuff in the weight room though, like how much you're
No,
lifting or like the quantities
no,
or like your strength
no,
coaches?
no. And like again, I played 3 seasons over there. There's lots of teams that do that. There's lots of teams that test these things, especially more now than maybe when I was playing too. And it's also not a bad thing. Like we test a lot. We test velocity. We
Yeah,
test different strength positions, all these things. And it's just finding that balance. So where the athlete isn't solely focused on, like, let's say if they're touching 911, they're not spending 80% of the time trying to touch that extra inch, but they're
mm,
spending 80% of that time trying to be better at volleyball and maybe contact the ball higher in the sport because we
yeah,
see it all the time with like when the VNL plays and they show like the spike, this actually like where they contact the ball, like yeah, it's high, but like it's not as high as their spike touch. So if we can actually start contacting the ball higher and have better timing and better hand contact and all those kind of things, like that's going to go a really long way as well. But metrics, they're important. I'm not saying that, but it's just finding that balance where like metrics to help you be better at volleyball.
No, I love that. That's awesome. So obviously with Arm Swing Academy, you guys run a ton of clinics. You work with so many athletes. Do you know how many athletes you've worked with so far about it in like ballpark?
No, we just say thousands now. It's been yeah.
I'm sure it's in the thousands. So like you have to say stuff like, you know, you don't have to play through pain. You don't have to play through pain. What's the most common mistakes you see athletes make that just leads to injury?
Yeah. Uh, a lot of things, and it's not always on the athletes too. Like a lot of it's just environmental with how club volleyball is run in North America. We have these huge tournaments where they play like 3, 4, 5 games in a day, and then do that like for 2 or 3 days in a row on cement, pretty much. And we're like, we expect them to be okay after that. And like that's really tough. Like, yeah, some athletes can like manage that and just come out with like a little bit like muscle soreness, but like if your shoulder, your back, your knee, like those things get sore or like painful after, like that can make some sense too. Like that's just the environment that we're unfortunately putting a lot of athletes in. Now the other side of that is one of my mentors had like a blog post and everything recently around like they're not overuse injuries, and kind of reframing that to under prepared. So it's not necessarily that we have so much, like we're not playing so much volleyball that our knees are bound to get hurt, because there's lots of athletes that don't have that, or that our shoulders are bound to get hurt, or whatever it is. But we need to be prepared for the amount of volume that we're going to have and the capacity that we need, so that we can handle that amount of volume, because it's going to be a lot, especially in the youth club system. Like it's going to be a lot of volume. Now we can better prepare our bodies so that we can handle that, and then we can better prepare how we move, so that not every swing is such a high cost on the shoulder, the low back, or the knee. So kind of going out from two ends of like, let's give our body some more capacity and some more ability to handle the load. And then let's make sure that our mechanics on the court, no matter what kind of skill we're doing, are efficient, so that we're not taking more than we need to, or putting more strain than we need to.
Yeah, it's yeah, you're right. The overuse of, like, especially just the overhand sport, you know, yeah, trust me, I was an outside hitter. Like, dude, I had plenty of times where I was icing my shoulder, like there's after practices. Even now I'm doing PT for my rotator cuff, because I do a lot of private lessons. So I'm serving thousands of balls, hitting balls like kids, and I'm learning how to take care of my shoulder better, going to PT once a week and giving me exercises for my rotator cuff. And it's just understand, trying to do things outside of it to prevent it or minimize it and strengthen, and, you know, just prepare, like you said, just prepare myself for that, the eventuality, because it's a lot of reps, you know. And a lot of these kids are, like you said, these massive tournaments, they're playing for days on end, and if your team is heavily relying on you, you know, they're gonna go to you really often. And yeah, you're gonna find a lot of different injuries. I had an athlete who had like shin splints at a major tournament, and it turned into stress fractures in both legs.
Yeah. I just worked with an athlete who's been dealing with, I think they originally had stress fractures, and then have just had shin splints ever since. And this has been a 2-year process for them. And it's just, that's tough. Like that, those things, again, environmental, it's really, we put them in a tough situation. And then we also, and like, we're like, athletes just aren't prepared. Their bodies aren't prepared for that amount of volume. Now we can do better at that, like I said, but like, I think both have to be addressed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Playing
like
12 games in a weekend is not a healthy thing for any level of athlete.
Yeah, a lot of these kids aren't playing on like a Terraflex or something. They're playing on like plastic sport court on cement in these convention halls, man. And that is not good for the knees or the impact. And it's a big impact when you jump and come down, right?
Yeah, like jumping. We put like was it over 10 times our body weight through our soleus. We put over 5 times, or like around 5 times our body weight through the tendons in our knees. Like, we put so much force and load through our joints and through our muscle. It's like, and we can, yeah. Now, again, you can train so that you can handle a lot more of that without these big things. But again, if we just say, hey, now go play 12 games in 2 days, like things will probably happen for a lot of athletes, no matter how trained they are.
Yeah, it's just when we're talking about multiple days in a row, especially at nationals, which is 4 days, like,
Wow.
Man, you're playing at least 3 matches, maybe four.
Hmm.
And if they go to extra sets, like it just adds up so much. And it's just tough to like, there's so many teams who compete at nationals, and it's impossible to whittle it down
Totally.
over just a short amount of days or not enough matches. So it's tough. I don't think I'm gonna unfortunately be seeing a change in that anytime soon. So I
Yeah.
think it really just comes down to preparation. Do you think there's anything like coaches or trainers should be thinking about, like understanding? Okay, we can't change the load,
Yeah.
unfortunately, right? But are there anything like coaches are missing, or they can maybe think about when it comes to handling the load? Because you hear that in basketball all the time, right? The load management in the
Yeah.
NBA,
Yeah.
right? So like, what maybe is there something that coaches can do to help with that load management?
Oh yeah. There's tons. There's so much we can do around that. Whether that's just like playtime, monitoring jumps in practice and games, all like there's like the load management side of things. There is, like I said, like we can, as if you have some experience with working with athletes off the court, in a weight room setting or anything like that, like we are very weak as volleyball players as a whole, especially the shoulder area. We train a lot like basketball or football players. Like we train to jump higher, which is great and a really important part of the game. But we very rarely train the shoulder in a way that actually uh, is stimulating and develops strength and capacity in relation to how we hit the ball. So change the way how we do that. But then also within all this is like when we are getting these, like let's say like the overuse, like the knee, the low back, the shoulder pain, that all for 95% plus of athletes happens as we attack and as we serve. That's when we feel it. So if we can utilize our body as we attack and as we serve and integrate our full body into that, so we work on the mechanics of those things, then our shoulder won't take as much load. Then our low back won't take as much load. Even our knees won't take as much load if we learn how to land rotated so that we end up more balanced in our landing and more often on 2 feet. So just like that's kind of where we've really like dove into the arm swing as the biggest thing for us is like we were working with a ton of athletes off the court, like I said before, like a lot of athletes in pain or that had injuries. And we do all the movement stuff. We do make them more efficient off the court. We give them more capacity, all those good things. And that would help a lot of athletes. A lot of them would return though. And they'd have similar pains, similar injuries going on, whether it was a month, 6 months, a year later, whatever it was. And what we started noticing was, okay, like in the weight room, they're still pretty good. Where is this coming from? Why are they back to see us? And what we figured out was like, yeah, the most explosive, dynamic, volatile thing that we do to our bodies is attack or spike or hit a spin serve. And if we do that, and when we looked at like club level volleyball players, let's say like 12 to 18, a majority of those athletes are very inefficient with how they use their body to hit at a high velocity. Now the body will find ways to produce power, but those ways aren't always the best for the body. Your body's an excellent problem solver, but it's not always great at keeping you feeling good. So what we started to do was work on the mechanics as well as do the off-court stuff. And then the shoulder got better, the low back got better, the knees got better. And then, like I said before, like if we can just decrease the strain in those areas as we continue building up off the court, we can have like really healthy volleyball players, and we can have volleyball players that like might get sore after those tournaments, but it doesn't turn into big injuries that take them out of the sport.
No, yeah, I think the movement component is so huge. Like I actually didn't even think about the rotation and then landing on 2 feet. Like now that I was thinking, like as you said that, I was thinking about it. I'm like, oh wow, dude, that's actually a really good point. I didn't even think about that as an advantage besides just obviously helping generate force. But it's like, oh, can it help athletes just be a little bit more balanced when they land?
Yeah, we see. I mean, knee pain in volleyball has always been always been there. We've worked with a lot of athletes where like, yeah, we can do all the off court stuff, load the tendon, make it more resilient, great. But again, if they're landing off balance on one foot most of the time, that's gonna be really tough. So if we can teach them how to actually rotate their body, like we'll use this with knee pain athletes that we work with, is like if they're not rotating through the ball, that would be one of the big things for their knee rehab, is to actually learn how to rotate through the ball so that lots of the time they end up landing on 2 feet. Now, we play volleyball. It is a random, chaotic sport where we're never going to land on 2 feet every time. So we also need to be really strong landing on one foot. But if we can rotate through, we can land on two more often. We can, again, distribute the stress and the load more evenly through the whole body rather than just through one leg.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think, talk about that, the load and managing. And I know at the highest level, I've helped out with the women's national team, and they're using, and the men's, and they're using Catapult or the Vertex. They're like, tracking a lot of the jumps and stuff. And I know some college coaches use it here in the United States are using that. And they're really tracking the load of these players. And some coaches are super strict where like they're trying to ramp up to national championship, and they know, hey, where do we need to be by that final game of the season? And if along the way they hit a certain number during practice, doesn't matter if it's in the middle of practice, they just cut. All right, we're done. Right? It's like, hey, we hit the number that we were going to do today, and hey, if we have other stuff, we'll do it tomorrow. Right? So I know definitely at the highest levels, they're definitely tracking that a lot better, especially some of these pro athletes who are going overseas and the training methodology is different, and maybe they're coming back with a lot of injuries. But when they come back to our gym in the national team, they're definitely really, really aware of the load and what they've been through, and they're really, really mindful of trying to ramp them up to be ready to play. Because some of these pro athletes, man, dude, they're going from their pro season straight to the USA gym here, and it's like no break. And then they go right back to their pro season. Like it's a grind if you're playing at the highest level and you're playing for your national team. Like there's really no break.
Yeah. Yeah. I was from 15, now I'd say like 16, let's say, is when I really took volleyball kind of year round and more seriously. And that from 16 until 23 or 24, I never had more than like a couple weeks off at a time. And like a couple weeks, maybe like 2 times a year. And then I got that, I decided not to play national team one summer, and I got that summer off, and I was like, this is incredible. This is so, it was between my first and second professional season. And it was eye-opening. I was like, oh, like this is an off season. Yeah. This is what rest is. This is what, okay, I can like work out and I can rest. I can have a bit of a social life for the first time. It was very interesting. And then I didn't play national team again. And then then I didn't play many more years of pro after that. Because I started, I think, finding other interests and other things that I really liked and enjoyed. But yeah, it's tough like that year. And like you said, like there's so much tracking and load management and everything that we can do. And I think there's like a fine line, and a lot of coaches kind of like will lean really hard, like you said, towards like, yeah, practice is done. A lot of teams will also use that stuff and then never really action it. Like it'll be like a great thing that they have access to, but they never really do anything with it. And I think like finding that balance between the two sides of like, yeah, these numbers are telling us this is important. We're seeing this. Our team needs this. This is important. And then working those two things together is, I don't know, that's my happy zone. That's where I like most teams to exist.
No, yeah, I love it. What would you say are some of like the biggest myths about volleyball training you wish players understood?
Like training in the weight room or training on the court? Biggest myths. Yeah, I think I said it kind of before. Like we training like a basketball player, a football player. We're getting like bigger, stronger, faster, and like very much around vertical. Really important. That will help with velocity in some ways for sure. But also training the shoulder and training your body to rotate is something that just across the board. Like again, we've worked with tons of programs, tons of clubs, tons of athletes, thousands of athletes, and that is just something that on the whole we're not doing well is training the shoulder and training the spine and the core of how to actually rotate. If we're
Yeah.
going to use these positions on the court, or if we want to use these positions on the court and be really strong and powerful in them, then we should train them in some way off the court as well. So I
For
think
the
just a little more,
we're in the weight
yeah.
room for rotating. Is the main muscle the obliques?
There's so many muscles that can help. Like your
Really?
back extensions can help, your hips can help, your how your hips rotate can help. Like there's so many things that can
Mm.
help. But like obliques is big for sure. But there's this again, like that's the common one. Like, okay, let's train the obliques. Great. But if I'm loading here, my obliques are involved with this, but so are some muscles that run in from our spine and kind of pull me
Mm.
into that position as well. And there's just more there. But yeah, training the body to rotate. Uh, I guess like the myth of that would be like we do a ton of anti-rotation stuff in the weight room because we rotate so much on court. So a lot of strength coaches are like, okay, you rotate as you hit. So then we need to like hold this out here and not let this move and resist
Mm.
against rotation, which is fine and part of the plan for sure. But also we we are rotational athletes
Yeah.
as volleyball players. If you're hitting a ball, you're a rotational athlete, or you will want to be a rotational athlete. Not all of us are, and so we need to train that quality so that we have the quality and capacity to actually get into those positions with some strength and power, so that when we're on the court we can use it. Just like if we want to spike the ball from a higher contact point, we want to jump higher, great. We'll train that in the weight room. I think the myth is, or the idea here is we also need to train the other half of that.
Yeah, especially just like thinking about it, you know, a lot of coaches talk about the correlation between, throwing sports and volleyball and a lot of the similar mechanics. Um, in your experience, because volleyballs do it in the air. Do we recruit different muscles compared to the people who are on the ground? I'm guessing so, right?
Uh, I think yeah, that's a good question. It
Because
might not
I'm just
necessarily
thinking about
like,
we're in the air, and that's like
yeah,
I think the hardest part of getting a kid to rotate in my experience is just the fact that we're doing it midair.
yeah, definitely. Like we do a lot of throwing stuff because, as you kind of alluded there, like it's easier to learn the pattern because we're on the ground. We can use our feet, so we use the ground to push into our rotation. Now, what we do with our approach and what we do with how we take off and how we land is how we try to teach that is like it's not necessarily recruiting different muscles, it's just a different pattern, and like
Hmm.
we can still use the ground to produce rotation. So based off how we take off and based off how we land, those two things together will help us rotate in the air. So we can still use our feet in a way, but then yeah, a lot of it as we're flying through the air is like we need to be really good in the trunk and the hips and the trunk kind of area so that we can use that more as our like center or like our point of rotation versus in baseball or tennis or other sports that are overhead but on the ground, they can use their feet to get into those positions a bit more. But we need to be a little bit better through our trunk and hips.
Yeah, like when you're in the ground more, you definitely like if you're a righty, you activate that right glute to help that right hip come forward. I know, and then you get
Mm.
that. I know we talk about that a lot of that shoulder hip separation to really feel that stretch across your body. But yeah, definitely, it's. I would definitely say it's a little bit tougher to do it in the air, but
Yes.
it's you can definitely accomplish it.
Oh yeah. And like we see that in our clinics. Like we can get a group hitting on the ground with like pretty cool mechanics pretty quickly. And then we take that group and we start jumping, and more than half the group is like back to this extension or just using their
Yeah.
shoulder to hit the ball, and they lost all the rotation. And like that makes sense. Like if we're on the ground, our body is in a safer position. We can use it in different ways. As we get off the ground, it gets more complex. That's why volleyball is so cool. Is like we have to be this like, we have to fly high like a basketball player, but also have the arm of a baseball pitcher. And those two things combined, I was like, this is a really cool, exciting sport because of that.
I love
But
that, dude. I
also it's
love that
difficult.
analogy. You got to fly
Yeah.
like a basketball player, but you gotta throw it like a baseball. I like that, man. I'm gonna steal that.
Yeah.
I like that a
That's
lot.
that's the ideal like physical makeup for me of a volleyball player is those two things.
Awesome. So I know you touched about this a little bit, like just some small technical changes in arm swing or landing that you feel will prevent or make athletes hit harder.
Yeah. So kind of our first thing that we do with athletes when we get a group, let's say together, or even an individual, is just how do they take off on their jump and then how do they land? And if we can take off, whether front foot especially facing somewhat towards our hitting side, so if I'm right-handed, my foot will be turned a little bit to my right, and if I can land now with my right foot landing in front of my left foot, I just accomplished rotation, which means I just used my whole body probably better than I've used it before, which will almost immediately decrease strain or how much stress we put through different aspects of the body that are typically compromised, like our knees, our low backs, and our shoulders. And then also, we know rotation, like every sport that hits or throws something hard or far uses a rotational pattern. So if now all of a sudden we're rotating, we'll see velocity increase as well. Might not be all of a sudden because maybe our timing is worse now, our hand contact's worse now because we just learned something brand new in the body. But like I've seen NCAA, like a junior male athlete in NCAA at a really good university or college, they only in one day they learn how to take off one way, land the other way, and the next day he had a PR on his jump spin serve by 5 miles per hour. It's like okay, like,
Whoa,
and like that's a huge difference. Like that's
that's
like I think
massive.
for him it was like 63 miles to 68 or something like that. And
Is that the biggest jump you've ever seen
uh
in your experience? Because I
no.
know I love that. By the way, I love that that you're tracking that. I've actually started doing that with some of my athletes. Is whether it's just their serve or their hitting to get like a baseline of where they're at,
Hmm.
especially when I first start. Because then it's that's why I love the weight room. There's a number attached to it,
Yeah.
and I think it's really great for athletes to see that number go up, and then it kind of validates like, oh, I am making progress, I am improving. Because sometimes, dude, improvement can feel ambiguous. Sometimes it can.
Yeah.
Some days you feel great, some days you don't, and but if you
Yeah.
have a number attached to, how hard you're hitting the ball,
Hmm.
and I think that's huge for the athlete side to see and kind of buy in to what they're learning.
Yeah, totally. If we can, and again, we're not going to see that 5 mile per hour jump in a day with every athlete that we teach that to, but we will for a lot, and that's the exciting part of like the arm swing is. Let's just like we started this business because there was a hole or a gap we saw, and like people aren't really training the arm swing. There's a few that are out there and awesome, but like it's not being taught globally yet or widespread enough. So if we take something like if you want to become if you've never passed a ball before and then you take a few hours and you learn how to pass a ball, you will be a lot better at passing than you were at the start of the session. It's kind of what we're seeing with the arm swing stuff. Like most athletes don't really train the arm swing. They spike, but they don't really train the mechanics of it ever. So if we all of a sudden teach them some mechanics and they improve on those things, they'll see a huge improvement because it's new. They haven't been working on this for years and years and years. Even at like national team level, NCAA level, professional level, we work with athletes at all those different levels that you'd expect would have worked on their arm swing before. We've asked national team players like, "Hey, what do you know about the arm swing?" And they're Batman, Superman, Robin Hood, and they're still going through these things that like we teach that's been taught to like 12-year-olds, and that's the extent of their arm swing knowledge. And it's like okay, like so you can still see these huge improvements because at all different levels because it's so under taught or under trained. So yeah, the biggest one or another cool one is like we had an athlete we started working with when he was 16. I think he was hitting I don't know what this is in miles, so that's my bad. We do
No,
kilometers a lot in
you can go
Canada,
kilometers. It's fine.
but he was I think he was like high 70s to low 80 kilometers on his spin serve at like 16, which is okay. It
Yeah.
wasn't a good arm swing. I can say that. He knows that. By the time he finished his 18U club season, I think he PB'd like 115. So he had like a 45-kilometer difference in a couple of years. And like some of that's going to come from puberty and like
Yeah.
maturing into your body for sure.
Yeah.
But we don't see those 45-kilometer jumps very often. So it's not just that. He improved his mechanics. It looks
Yeah.
night and day. He was working hard in the weight room, and all those things combined into this like huge, huge jump, which like took him from like an average arm swing to a really, really good arm swing. And he's a setter. So he had like this sweet
Oh,
weapon as a
what?
setter having a spin serve.
I love that. He was a setter.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
that's man, setter with the arm. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. We see a lot of setters. A lot of setters come to work with us because like
Really?
yeah, we work with a lot of setters because uh, I think maybe because they are even less trained in the arm swing because they don't spike ever, but like especially on the men's side, how popular the spin serve is becoming and how like necessary it is to like have some velocity behind your spin serve to get to that next level. Yeah, I don't know. We see a lot of setters because of that, I guess.
Awesome. So you started Arm Swing Academy. I know you guys have an app. You guys have a lot of awesome resources. You guys go out and do clinics. How should athletes maybe be training differently off the court to complement just the work they do on the volleyball court?
Yeah, so a couple simple practical things is like get on a pull-up bar and you can hang, or like get on a pull-up bar or get on monkey bars if like that's preferred, honestly. Like hang, swing, climb, go to your local like rock climbing gym, climb on the wall. Like those things put such a high like load and stimulus through your rotator cuff and through your shoulder that it will just help you last longer in the sport, especially with your shoulder. Like you're dealing with some rotator cuff issues right now too. Like how the rotator cuff was designed and uh, through evolution and everything else is like it holds the arm bone in the socket.
Hmm.
So if pull up behind me, if I'm hanging from that pull-up bar and my feet are off the ground, now gravity's pulling me down, my hands are holding me up. I'm getting that same kind of force and stimulus to the shoulder. So I'm training the shoulder and the rotator cuff how we're going to use in volleyball. Because in volleyball, our hand will move fast enough that it will pull our arm bone away from the socket. So it's a lot of stress on the rotator cuff and other things to glue it together. So if we can train on a monkey, or like just go on monkey bars, go on the pull-up bar, hang, do pull-ups, swing on bars, climb on rock climbing walls, like all those things would be incredible to help bulletproof your shoulder, help keep it really resilient, and help you manage the load and volume as you continue to develop in your career. So that and train rotation.
Hmm.
We are not Lego blocks. We do not just move in linear patterns. Uh, but like some of us do because we never have trained other ways. So train other range of the motion, train extension, train bending, train rotating at appropriate levels and stimulus for your age and your experience in the weight room. But we can do more there, which will give you more freedom, give you more access so that when you work with your coach on how to hit the ball harder and you try to rotate more, you'll be able to access it. So those two things kind of in the weight room, and then the other like play other sports
Mm.
or like and not even doesn't like almost prefer not organized, but like go and
Yeah.
play, pick up basketball, go play soccer on a field, go make up games, go play go have like a home run derby with your friends. Like those kind of things develop such cool movement IQ that they they just come back to volleyball. Like
Yeah.
if you play some soccer and then you swing a bat and do all these things, like you're training rotation, you're training your feet a little bit, and it's so cool how quickly that turns into you just becoming a better mover on the volleyball court, you becoming more efficient with how you move, you becoming having better eyes so that you pass better, you do other things better in your own sport. So being some sort of multi-sport athlete is the other really big thing. And then also for injuries, if we own like so many of us only ever play volleyball, so we only ever do certain things. So that whole idea of like the overuse of like years and years of just doing one thing with our arm, that's tough.
No, yeah, definitely. I think Yeah, that's when I was a player. I went to so many open gyms and like it was you don't you're seeing that more and more now the death of the multi-sport athlete.
Yeah.
I don't know how it is over for you in Canada, for
Same.
you guys, but especially here in the United States, man, kids specialize here so early, and
Hmm.
it's crazy. You know, I grew up playing multiple sports, whether it was soccer, basketball, football, and then volleyball. Not until I was in high school, and I played volleyball and basketball my first 2 years of high school, but eventually I just by my junior year I just was solely focused on volleyball. But now, man, that was what, like almost 15, 16 years, 17 years ago. Now, man, kids are 9 years old and they're just playing volleyball year round. It's
Yeah.
kind of wild.
Yeah. Yeah. It is wild, and it is wild, and it's I don't know if there's parents listening here, like the the burnout rate is so high when you just play one sport. The athleticism you develop from playing multiple sports directly impacts how you are in volleyball. Like there's so much now, so much research now around you becoming a better learner, a better athlete, less burnout, like all these things just by like exposing yourself to other sports. And it's one of the best things that you can do to actually make it to that next level. You don't need to peak at 14 years old. Now, that's might be debated because I know in the states, was it 15 when NCAA coaches can start talking to athletes?
No, 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 no. It's the June, so pretty much like the summer of sophomore to junior year. So 16 to 17 U.
Okay, yeah. So they have some time. Like you,
They changed that like I think like pre-COVID.
okay,
But right before they it's funny actually. Right before they made that change, I think it was like Oregon committed like an eighth grader.
oh my goodness.
I
So like
if I remember correctly, it was like crazy. I'm like, dude, how do you know?
you
Like,
don't.
dude, she's gonna be dude, she's only U14.
How do you
Yeah,
know
like
she's
they
gonna
try to
like
like sneak
volleyball?
one in real quick at the end, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
I could be wrong, but
yeah,
I think I remember hearing that.
yeah. So like there's just so much research now. One of my favorite books is Range, I believe it's called, by David something. It's an awesome book, and it just kind of goes into the science around not just sport specialization, but like everything. And like if you can just be more well-rounded as an athlete, as in other fields as well, you typically have higher success. So it's such a important thing. And then yeah, injuries and burnout, everything else, like it just helps. So
Yeah.
that's a passionate thing that I try to preach as much as I can.
I agree. So like, should I don't know? Should coaches? Is there anything coaches should know about like when they're designing their practice just to help prevent injury in general?
Yeah, uh, like take. We've worked with so many clubs, and we've had so much feedback of like, hey, I implemented arm swing mechanics stuff for like 5 to 10 minutes to start the practice, which like naturally kind of gets the arm and the jumps and everything kind of going so that they can jump fully into other things right after. And they saw less injury. They saw velocity. Like I just got an email recently, like, yeah, we did this for 15 or like 16 weeks with like 12 to 14 year athletes, 10 minutes a day or 10 minutes each practice out of our 90 minutes. And they saw average of 4 miles per hour improvement over those 16 weeks with those athletes. I saw other ones with less injuries, and it's just like just spend a little bit of time addressing some mechanics and then move on. There's I played volleyball. I know there's
Yeah.
a lot of other things that are important to be a good volleyball team, and there's a lot of other things that are in your mind. That's great. But if we can spend that a little bit of time that we can help athletes learn how to use their body better as they attack, we can decrease the stress and strain, shoulder, low back, and knees. Athletes can practice more because they're healthier. They can play more because they're healthier. Kind of all a bunch of good things happen, and you don't need full hour, 2 hour sessions on it all the time. It's like 10 minutes, 5 minutes. Awesome.
I think that's super doable. I think even if just a little movement, just getting moving around, but with a little bit of purpose, right? You can,
Yeah.
I see a lot of teams still do like the circle stretches to start practice, and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know what I mean, or just
Oh yeah, we're not even talking about
some,
dynamics yet. Like, yeah, we like if you're
or
working with
like,
club teams, like make them move like animals, like do the monkey hops, bear crawling, crab walking, how cartwheel, like make them gymnasts on before they play volleyball, and then that will be amazing as well,
no, yeah,
and make it
just
fun.
yeah, you got to make it interesting, especially if you want to start practice on a good note. If you make it fun and maybe something sometimes can be a little bit silly, but just some movement patterns and stuff. I think there's, oh man, I always forget his name online Instagram. He always has the no zombies.
Yeah, Rhett something, Rhetorist or
I'll
yeah,
find him sometime. But dude,
yeah,
I love his videos.
yeah,
That it look the athletes he works with, they look like they're having so much fun.
yeah. Volleyball should be fun, and this it's a hilarious. So like playing volleyball should be fun, but then usually warm ups are so boring and monotonous. It's like no, like let's have that be like that's such an easy time to have fun. We can do so much of that time to like warm them up, but also put a smile on their face and make them laugh. Like a goal with our clinic warm up is we see athletes smiling and laughing, and then we know if we can get them to that point, the clinic's going to go pretty well
Yeah.
if we can get them having fun with it. So yeah, and there's enough science again there behind like it's a simple one. People are happier, they will do better.
Yeah, like crazy concept, right? No,
Yeah,
I completely agree. I think it's just you gotta. I think there's a balance of the movement patterns that you're trying to get your athletes to understand and understand their own bodies, right? Because everybody has different limitations, right?
hmm
That we're just born with. But there's definitely some things that we can make improvements, whether it's the landing, the arm swing, right? The rotation, right? There's things that there, this goal of we're always trying to get better, and it's never going to be perfect, right?
yeah,
But we can keep on improving it. We can put a little bit of time into it, and I think just like you said, just 10 minutes a day. I think
yeah,
that's definitely something that coaches can put in the beginning, make it fun, and just work a little bit on their mechanics. I think that's really underutilizes that warm up period, that first 10 minutes. Of hey,
yeah.
let's get some mechanics, some really good mechanics in place.
And like it can just be the drills that you're doing. It doesn't have to be like this like crazy arm swing drill. It can be like pepper, it can be butterfly, but like as you're doing that, this is your focus as you hit the ball. It's like just do the same stuff, but add a little bit of intention to it around the mechanic of the arm swing, and it's like you'll see a lot of progress.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So with the Arm Swing Academy, do you know how many kids are or athletes are in that right now?
Yeah, in our virtual coaching, so like that's the Armstrong Academy app. We do virtual coaching on there. There's about just under 100 kids currently that are all in there, and yeah, and then we do our clinics with clubs. We do NCAA consulting, and then we do some private sessions as well.
Yeah, awesome. So like what? No, for sir. Again, I work with a lot of athletes. Like what could they expect from starting with the athlete, the Arm Swing Academy?
Yeah, so when you get into that app, I think there's like three or four things that are like really cool for athletes. First one I think is the biggest impact is the video analysis. So athletes can send us in videos of throwing and attacking. We show them what videos to send in, and then we will analyze it. We'll tell you kind of where you're at, where we can make some upgrades. We'll show you on the app what drills to prioritize. We have like, let's say 100 drills that we can do, which yeah, an athlete can go on there and kind of figure out like, oh, I should try and do these things. But like we'll let you know like, hey, like these two things this month, go and work on those things with this cue, and then show us the video next month, and then we make the next upgrade from there. So I think that is where we're seeing a lot of improvement with athletes is when they utilize the video analysis on there. So that's one thing. We have arm swing specific workouts. So we just talked a lot about like training the shoulder, training rotation, all these things. Like, yeah, that's all on there. You can get workouts based off if you're in high school or if you're more advanced or if you don't have weights or if you have lots, a big weight room, whatever it is. So there's those two things. There is this whole recently added physical assessment, self-assessment. So Alejandro, you can get on there. You could say, I have shoulder pain. Okay, then the assessment will kind of be based off your shoulder. You'll go through some different assessment, you'll kind of like have a video show you, okay, like test this, now test your hang, now test how you roll, all these things. And then as soon as you can't pass something, it will stop you there. It'll tell you, okay, like this is gonna be our priority for the next little bit here. Let's work on this, because this is a low hanging fruit for you. So we have that built into that so that athletes can continue to work on their durability and resilience. And then just chat support, like athletes ask us questions all the time on there, and that's seems to be pretty beneficial. So
I'm sure that keeps you busy.
definitely, yeah. And it's fun. Like obviously I'm passionate about talking about arm swing stuff, so we have a ton of kids in there and athletes and older athletes that ask a bunch of cool questions. So that's always fun for us.
No, I love that. All right. Kind of just a little quick wrap up. Do you have like your top 3 tips, just staying healthy or just improving performance for athletes?
Yeah. Work on your landing position, learn how to rotate and land rotated, as like lowest hanging fruit for most people's arm swings. Hang, get on a pull-up bar, hang, climb, swing, get on monkey bars, whatever that is. And then train your spine to rotate, train your core to rotate, train your whole body to use these patterns at like with your body weight, with some load, with med ball, with a bunch of instruments, and just develop that rotational IQ so that you can use that as you play volleyball.
No, love it. That's some really good value. So where can athletes learn more about the Arm Swing Academy and just connect with you online?
Yeah, I'd say probably the easiest point of contact will be on Instagram. We had our Instagram unfortunately hacked and deleted, so our new account is armswing.academy. Yeah, that happened this summer, so we're growing back. So that's okay. But yeah, so armswing.academy on Instagram, or on TikTok. Either of those, we post videos, we post exercises, things to work on, education. We try to give as much value as we can. So that'd be awesome. And then we also have this free resource. Again, you can go into our link tree on Instagram and find this, but it's just the Arm Swing Pocket Guide, which is an awesome resource to like learn about the arm swing, and it has tons of practical like self-assessments and some corrective exercises and some drills to work on for your arm swing and all these things, so that you can actually like start taking ownership of your training a little bit more and start applying things. That's all free. We want to give away some high value stuff, so that would be an awesome resource as well for you.
Awesome. I'll make sure to link everything below on this video. Cool. So if anyone wants to work with Nick, which I highly recommend, if you want to not only develop a killer arm swing and increase some velocity, but also to increase your longevity as an athlete, which I think all athletes want, right? They want to, hopefully they just don't want to hit hard now, but they want to do it for years to come. And I think Nick does an awesome job of that, right? So you don't have to sacrifice your body to play at your best in volleyball.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Nick, for coming on. I really appreciate you taking the time and just bringing a ton of value to everyone who's going to listen. And I can't thank you enough all the way from Canada, but thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. And thanks so much for everything that you do in the volleyball community. I love your videos. I love your content online and just how you're trying to grow the sport. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. All right, guys, till next week.